Great.
Thanks, Joe. We are now recording. Yes.
Perfect. And this shouldn't be as long as other presentations. So depends on all your questions maybe. But I am going to start off by just sharing my screen. So give me a second. Oh, Pastor, you have to allow me to share my screen.
Okay, let's see here. I'm multitasking. Okay, you should be good to go now.
All right, so everyone should see it, right?
Yes.
Wonderful. And Pastor, if you don't mind just helping out for questions, because I can't see everyone when I'm sharing my screen.
Sure.
As we go, that'd be great.
Yep.
Thank you. So this presentation is just kind of going to go over some of the things that either the land committee's been working on or things that I've been working on as the coordinator in FCP. Things like our programming, where we are in our budget, what's coming next, and how you can participate. So here we go. First, I want to talk about growing, what to expect. And the pictures that you see on the screen are all pictures that were taken in our prairie last year. You will notice we had lots of flowers, but we also had lots of critters. I challenge you to find the 3 critters that are on this page. Some are a little bit more obvious than others. But we had a lot of plants growing, and that's fantastic. As we learned last year from Thelma, you know, our prairie was faring better than some other prairies in the area. She actually felt our prairie was doing the best, and her job now is to take care of prairies and the soil for Washington County and a couple of the other counties in the area. So it was great to get that from, you know, that news from our prairie last year. So looking forward to this year, I wanted to remind everyone of the timeline, because I have a problem with this in spring. We start to get a little warmer weather, and Andy calls it the fake spring. But it kind of kicks us all in gear. We get this beautiful warm weather and we're like, yes, spring is coming, it's on its way. And then we get cold again, and it's such a bummer because I'm out preparing beds for plantings and I want to plant, but have to remind myself we are only in April. And the snow that we got the other day really reminded me of that we shouldn't be seeing too much growing yet, even though I feel like I want to be seeing it. So I wanted to remind everyone of the timeline from last year. So in the month of May, it was dirt. It was just dirt. In June, we started to get the green in the beginning. By the end of June, it was completely green. July, we started to see actual blooms. And they started to open. And then by August, you know, everything was yellow, like that picture with the deer. It was a beautiful yellow. And we did have other colors. We had white come in, we had some purple come in, but the majority was yellow at that point. Even though it was a handful of different plant species, they just all happened to be yellow. So I wanted to remind you of that. When you look out on the prairie, we are already seeing green, which is fantastic. And that's typical. The plants had to start from seed. A lot of them are still starting from seed this year, but a bunch of them are starting from just dormant plants. And that's a huge step in the right direction for a plant. They already have root systems. They have saved energy, stored energy from the fall last year. So they're going to come in faster. So my hope. Oh, yeah.
There was a hand up. Joe Dorer had his hand. Joe, did you have something you wanted to add or ask?
No, never mind. I'll wait till later. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay. Sounds good. So hopefully we'll see things happen sooner. We're only in April, the end of April, and we're already seeing green. So we're not going to go through, you know, the pure dirt phase, obviously, because we didn't plow it last year. So hopefully we get more green, and our blooms will happen even earlier for those plants. Now, we will not have additional blooms that didn't bloom last year until July or August of this year. But the things that did bloom last year, hopefully have enough saved energy over the winter that they will be able to bloom this year, and we'll be able to do it a little faster. So those are some of the things to start looking for. People ask me a lot of times, can I walk in the prairie? Yes, you can walk in the prairie at this point. If you can kind of see where the pathways are, which some spots it's obvious and some aren't, try to stay on them. But at this point, we're not hurting any of the plants yet. It's too early for that problem to happen. As it starts to grow, the more green we see, we will start mowing that pathway earlier than we did last year. So once you see that pathway mowed, please stay on the pathways and not wander the whole prairie. Because we want to give these plants the best opportunity to be able to come up and not be squashed by anyone's feet.
Dena, I was just going to add another reason too to stay on the trails is often you don't realize it, but you have a lot of things hanging on your soles of your shoes. And you can unintentionally track in and be a vector for invasive species, or things we don't really want in the prairie, or we're trying to not have in the prairie. So that helps us as well.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great call out. If you've been on a hike and you're ending your hike in the prairie, maybe take a look at like your shoes, the bottom of your pants. Little seeds like to hook onto you, birds like to hook onto you. To make sure you don't have any of those things before you come into the prairie is helpful. Yeah. Any other questions at this point? No? All right. We're going to keep going then. So the really exciting part, if you've been out to the prairie to look this week, was the construction. And I was out there Friday night, but I did not get out, every day. Tom Sear is like our foreman. He handles all of that. Says it's a good group of people to be working with, very knowledgeable. So that's great. But you see some pictures. They started on the climbing circle. That's the biggest circle for construction. The picture in the lower left is the beginning. So they pulled the rock and they actually expanded that circle to make it a little bit bigger to accommodate everything that we wanted in the circle. And then all the other fun pictures are of the viewing deck being started. And Tom did send me a picture yesterday that I did not get in the presentation fast enough. But the platform actually has the stairs in, and it looks like the carpenter has at least started to put down the top, the walking surface. So it's starting to actually take shape, which is fantastic. At this point, the carpenter will continue to work and finish up some things. Playscapes will actually be making the pergola in their warehouse and bringing it already kind of put together in pieces. And so that process, along with prefab of a few other things that they need to do for our area, will take them about 2 to 3 weeks. So we'll see the one guy out there working, and he's going to finish up his job, but then we probably won't see anything go on for a couple of weeks. And that's planned. So I know it's hard to wait, but more will happen than a few weeks later. And they hope to be done, a few weeks after that. The last thing that will go in will be the Willow Tunnels. Obviously, it's too cold to plant things right now. And the willows won't even ship actually until May, until warmer weather. So at the end of this whole process, depending on weather and how long it took them to get all the circles done, they might be just on site and finish up the willows, or there might be another break where they leave for a few weeks waiting for better weather to come back and do the willows tunnel circles, or the tunnels, excuse me. But it's very exciting. I know Tom's on the call. Do you have any other tidbits of information since you've been on site that you want to share?
No, I think you got it covered pretty well.
Okay, I'm putting him on the spot. Sorry, Tom. Yeah, so it's moving in the right direction and things are happening. What was great when I stopped out Friday after Fish Fry to just kind of take a look at it, there was another couple out there and they were exploring and they were getting close to things and really taking a look at everything. And I happened to see them enter in as I was heading out. So I didn't have a chance to talk to them, but the neighbors are noticing. I also received an email from one of the neighbors, someone who knew this was coming and was excited about it. She just said that her family walked by and they can't wait, and it was wonderful to see it start. So the community is noticing that something is here and it's not just plants.
You know, I have a little tidbit before I left on my retreat. When the driver was dropping off materials, he was sharing, we're chatting, and he was even talking about what he was telling his ex-wife about this project. And she's like, that sounds like the coolest thing. So the word is spreading all over the place of this thing happening in Cedarburg. You know, I think this church, you know, that's doing this, it was kind of fun to hear him talking about that. So well done.
Yeah, it's definitely a visual project, and this neighborhood has not seen activity like this in a very long time. So it's getting attention. Any other questions on playscapes, where they are, what they're doing? No, you guys are a quiet bunch.
A question.
Yeah.
Just about if there's going to be a lap in time between the platform being completed, do we need to restrict access to it? Is it okay for people to be on it? I mean, if they're putting the stairs on and then there's going to be a deck, I think the temptation is going to be for people to go on it. Is it okay if they do?
Tom, did they address that with you? Because that was one question I had with them as well.
Well, I think the carpenter's going to be done by the middle of next week or this week. So he's got to put the railing up yet. So it's probably not safe right now. But it'll be resolved here in the next couple of days in terms of the platform.
Okay. Because I know the area isn't marked off, and that worried me that if they leave and it's not completely done, and I hadn't gotten an answer back from them yet on that. But hopefully, like Tom said, they'll be done in the next couple of days with that part. My concern was, I'm guessing the carpenter isn't putting up the rope lattice that goes around. And so that made me concerned that it will look like a done project and we'll have people like climbing up there and jumping off. And that worried me. But I haven't gotten an answer back yet on that.
We probably should put up a keep off sign until it's complete, just to limit our liability.
Yeah. But good call out, Esther. Safety is important, even during this construction. Any other questions? All right. We're going to move on to programming. So programming started last fall. As most of you know, I started programs in the prairie, and those are programs on all different topics, and it happens once a month, open to the public. So here you see some of the pictures from the tracks program that was last month, and we found lots of tracks on our property. And River Edge gals came out and they brought really neat animal skins and scat and tracks and put on a wonderful program. We were all hiking in the woods and moving like animals and trying to figure out tracks and evidence of animals and why would we see certain things? Why would we find little clumps of hair in certain areas? I think the kids got a lot out of it. You also notice we had a big group there. And those families do not belong to faith. So it is reaching the community. And what's wonderful is when they register, I capture their email. And I have been emailing them the group of, hey, reminder, here's the link to the next program. And a lot of them are signing up for repeat programs. They're actually contacting me and saying, we're bummed. We can't come to that program. We have a conflict. And what that shows me is that there is community buy-in for these programs. You know, when your program gets really big, people don't communicate that way anymore. But when it's small and they're invested and they want to keep coming, They don't want to see the program stop. They want to communicate why they're not there. And that's happening. That's huge in the programming world. Most families don't take the time to respond to an email just to say, hey, I can't come, we're busy, but love the programs. That's what I'm hearing from these families. So that's wonderful. The picture right in the middle is the picture that we just had, this program. We built bat houses. And a handful of these bat houses will be on church property, encouraging wonderful bats to stay here. We have the perfect environment for them. And so hopefully we will get bats. People ask me, why should we have bats? And if you don't like mosquitoes in your yard, you need to have bats. So hopefully we'll have some on prairie grounds as well. But those are just some fun pictures of programming. Programming will continue. Like I said, Programs in the Prairie is once a month. So our next one is May 23rd. I want to get the dates right. Yep, May 23rd. We'll be dealing with invasive species. So actually doing a service project, working with Cedarburg Green and removing some garlic mustard. Not on our property, on a different area, but we hope to not have garlic mustard in our prairie. We don't right now. Let's keep it that way. So programs are happening and they're geared for all ages. You know, we do things for young kids, but we also do things for adults. So anybody can get anything out of it when you come. So please register if you're interested on those topics. Looking ahead, and I know this screen is a little overwhelming and it's kind of by design. We have a lot going on and this kind of gives a visual of that. And the colors that you see are color coded to show what that topic is about. So if you look at the yellow boxes, these are physical things coming into the prairie, like, you know, the resting benches for people to sit, bird baths, free little library, the bat houses. This is not an all-inclusive list by any means. The land committee is working on what we would like to have in the prairie, priorities, and sometimes the priority is dictated by price. Sometimes it's dictated by use. So these are things that hopefully you will see this summer coming into the prairie. If you look at the green items, these are programs in the prairie that I'm working on setting up dates, different guest speakers, or me, myself being the guest speaker. So they're on a lot of different topics. Some of them are music, some of them, the night sky, I'll be talking all about the stars. Birds of prey, hopefully I can get a group to come in and fly some of their birds of prey over our prairie, which would be very neat, especially for any photographers out there. Talking about native lands, the people that used to live here before, you know, civilization came through, and who were those people and how did they live? So lots of different topics for those programs in the prairie. The last one you see is the blue, and the blue represent programs that either are connected with Faith Church or aren't at all. You'll see music classes. This isn't something that I'm doing. This is something that a group reached out and said, hey, we teach music classes to the community and we are looking to expand into the Cedarburg area. We need an outdoor venue. What a perfect thing to do in the prairie. So we're looking at making some of those connections along with VBS camp. That's exciting because last year we weren't able to do that in person. This year we will be, and we'll be doing it all over our grounds, not just in the prairie area, but because we have the land and we have the beautiful areas, we're going to be doing VBS camp in person on property. And that's going to draw a lot of attention, I think, from the community. So we have a lot of kids that come to VBS that are not connected with our church or with Advent, since we do it together. They just come because they love VBS camp and they've come for many years. So this will be a way to engage them on our grounds a little bit different than what they've done in the past. So basically lots of things coming up and always looking for people that want to help with any aspect of it. Just let me know and I can get you hooked up with the right part of the group that's working on that.
You know, I'm going to jump in with one of the green things, Pondering on the Prairie. Pam Gergens reminded me our next one is scheduled for this coming Tuesday. So if you're around, it'll be Tuesday at 6 p.m. And you're welcome to just come and we'll gather outside in the big circle and take a look at what's happening in there and just have some conversation.
Yeah, wonderful. And that brings up on kind of another idea. If you have a work meeting that needs to happen, if you are involved in Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, 4-H, any different group like that, that's looking for a place to meet. Now that it's getting nicer to be able to meet outdoors. So some of the restrictions of being indoors with COVID aren't quite as scary to think about. Let me know, reach out to those groups and say, hey, there is a great spot. We could have this meeting outdoors a little bit more comfortably and more relaxed, and see what your group thinks and let me know. We can get that scheduled. There's no reason groups like that can't come in and utilize our prairie. Yeah, Al.
So one of our goals or council goals or congregation goals for this year is to expand partnerships and being the fact that we are literally the only ELCA church in the community that isn't landlocked. I'm wondering how many opportunities there might be for other churches, other partner churches of ours to utilize the prairie as well for their activities.
Yeah, not only their activities, but even like an outdoor worship. They might not be able to do that on their grounds, but they want to offer it to their congregation. So things like that, most definitely. Anything else about looking ahead? All right.
I was wondering about VBS. Is the plan right now that the entire VBS would be outdoors, or just to use the prairie for parts of it, or what's the story?
The goal is to be outside the entire time. That's obviously weather dependent, but we also are blessed with a huge building with lots of different places. So if the weather were to turn ugly and we had to go inside, we have a lot of space to spread out. So we felt very confident that we would be able to say VBS camp is completely outdoors, with a little side note saying we do have an indoor spot for severe weather. We're actually looking at putting up some tents, like the 10 by 10 pop-up tents. So activities would be in covered areas. So even in like light rain or something, we could still be outside. But then if it's bad weather or something like that, having to move inside to have that space. But we are trying to do it completely outdoors. Anything else? Anyone else? Okay. So moving on to kind of the last topic to update everyone on funding and donations. I get this question a lot. Are we done? I still wanted to donate. I still wanted to be part of it. And you definitely can. Funding is never going to stop for Faith Community Pathways. Just to be able to maintain the prairie, to be able to offer free programming, we will need constant funding. So it is never too late. And I try to get that out to people. It is never, ever too late to donate or to add to that funding group. You can do it in two different ways. It can be simply a monetary donation. And you say, yep, I want you to use it however you see fit. Great. You can do that by sending a check into church and just earmark it FCP. You can contact me or pastor. We can help facilitate that. You could even do it right online through Tidely. There's a way, you can mark it for FCP that way. You can also donate something specific. Maybe you want one of those upcoming structures like the bird bath. Maybe that connects with your family and you would like to donate either money towards a bird bath or an actual bird bath. Both are wonderful things. Contact pastor or myself before you go out and buy something, an item to bring into the prairie, because those items do need to be approved. And the land committee has looked at, starting to look at, well, what would those bird baths look like? What would the benches look like? Could we have them built by a different group? you know, a lot of Boy Scouts or their Eagle Scouts are looking for their final project. A lot of 4-H kids are looking for woodworking projects to be able to showcase, you know, at the fair, and then they turn around and donate those items. So those are all acceptable routes. They're fantastic. It connects us more with the community. But before you go out and do something, please, I urge you to contact either myself or Pastor. We do not want things just plopped in the prairie and left. That is not the look we are going for. And I would think everyone would agree on that. We need to make sure items are appropriate, they're placed in the right spot, and that safety is taken into consideration too with the items being donated. As of budget, we are cruising right along. We had a lot of things that we wanted to do. Some of those things might be done this year. They might be pushed off to next year, depending on how things flow out. Unfortunately, we did not receive one of the grants that we were looking for. We just found that out recently. However, when you work with God, he provides. And within a very short amount of time of learning that we did not receive this grant, we had a community family not connected with faith show interest that they would like to donate a very similar amount, almost the same amount, in honor of some family members. So it's amazing how he provides if you just follow his footsteps. And so funding is still coming in, and it's starting to come in from outside sources. And this takes years to establish, and we have barely started this project, and the community's noticing and they want to fund it because they really like it. It's showing that connection. So I know some people are worried about budget numbers. We are doing really well. And we're on track, we're on goal. So any questions about funding or donations? No, all right. Well, that's pretty much what I have as an update. I tried to cover all the bases, but now open it up to discussion, questions you have or things you wanted to discuss.
I don't know if this is for Tom or for Dena, but when you first started educating us about prairies, there was discussion of occasional or periodic burns. How far into the future would that happen at our prairie? And what can you tell us about it right now?
Yeah, so burns typically happen somewhere around year 3 to 5 if you need it. It might be even longer than that before we need it. It's all about how much thatch is created each year. Because obviously this is kind of odd. This is almost like people that mow their grass a lot, they don't like to leave the clippings because they're worried. The prairie doesn't get mowed, so those plants collapse. They're pushed down with all the snow, and that's what you want to happen. You don't want to remove that unless it gets too thick. So that's what we'll be watching for, and that can take years. They say some prairies, when I've talked to Thelma, are 8 years old and they've never been burned and don't need it because their thatch is naturally breaking down fast enough that they don't need that burn to get rid of that thatch. Because you want it a little thick so all these little seedlings coming up are protected from the elements. That's the main reason for that thatch. But if it gets too thick and too dense, they can't even grow through it. So we'll be watching for that. But I would guess, looking off of our prairie from last year, walking it now, the amount of thatch there, we're years away from needing to burn.
Dena?
Yeah.
I had heard you were talking about the bat houses. I'm curious what the thought process is with bird houses. I had heard some conversations about, putting up some bird houses, and then a contradictory point of view, I suppose, that some birds will avoid spaces that other birds are occupying. And so are there some birds we're trying to attract and others that we're trying to say, we just do not have you in this space?
That is an excellent question. And to be honest with you, we have not as a committee looked at individual bird species. Now we do have a birdhouse up, and Tom put that up if he wants to talk about it at all. So birdhouses will definitely be encouraged, but the committee has not kind of gone down the road of what kind of birdhouse, what species, good or bad, so to speak. So that'll be a topic that will definitely be discussed before more go up, but we do have one right now. Tom, what bird?
The bluebird house.
That's what I thought. Okay, I didn't want to misspeak.
I think we would like to attract bluebirds. Pastor could probably talk to this. And the trouble is that wrens like to live in bluebird houses. So we would like to see fewer wrens and more bluebirds.
Yeah, definitely encouraging species that are struggling in our area versus a lot of the invasives that have come in and taken over. That I know is what we will be looking for, but just specific species, I don't know.
Yeah, I think with bluebirds, there's a bit of management that kind of comes with that. And some of the ones you really don't want to encourage would be like an English sparrow or a house sparrow. They'll actually attack and kill other native cavity nesting birds, or starlings is another bird species that's been introduced here that will sometimes go and use a cavity. So you kind of want to monitor your houses for that, so you're not creating unintentional house sparrow habitat and helping those proliferate and kind of drive out the bluebirds. But yeah, it's exciting. There's a couple other bluebird houses that Marshall Maluk made as part of his Eagle Scout project. And we haven't really been monitoring those. Although Tom, I think, have you been kind of keeping an eye on them or checking them?
Well, I cleared out the old nests, a few weeks back. Yeah. So far, I haven't seen any activity.
Some of the other bird species too that I've heard some interest in would be like purple martins. They'll fly and catch insects in the air on the wing, actually, and you can make houses for them. Another one that I think is kind of cool, if you've ever been to Vermont Park, they have it's for chimney swifts. And so chimney swifts would nest in chimneys, actually, or before settlement, it would have been like a big, tall, standing hollow tree. But you can construct a chimney swift house that is like a big column, that they'll fly into, and then they come out and they eat insects at night as well. And those are birds that are in this area as well, and we can provide habitat for them. So those are some interesting possibilities also.
Any other thoughts? Comments or questions?
It's pretty. This is toward the church. The circles.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else, that was my update so far. A lot of exciting things happening this year. And we're just going to keep cruising through and obviously keep things safe with COVID. But being outdoors is, proven. The scientists say that is very safe. So we're going to keep moving ahead since we have the ability, and we have the people and we have the land. So.
Great. Thank you, Dena, for that update. Appreciate it. And again, reminder that on Tuesday at 6 p.m., if you'd like to stop by, we're going to have Pondering in the Prairie. And Cindy Delagrazio put a little reminder in the chat too. On May 21st, we're going to have a cookout and a campfire, just for some fun outdoor kind of activity as well. So some things to look forward to.
Thanks, Dena.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for all the support.
Yeah.
Great job, Dena. I'm going to say bye now.
Bye now.